Hello and welcome to Bookshelf. Fredrick Forsyth, the master storyteller in the thriller genre, died last month, and this episode is dedicated to him. His fans and book lovers had admired him for his eye for detail and his runaway success of his first novel, The Day of the Jackal, which serves as an assassin's manual and a checkbook for the law enforcing authorities as well. Forsyth was a journalist, spy, fighter pilot, and dons many hats, and a writer with a powerful narrative skills is the most colorful hat he wears. He speaks multiple languages French, German, Russian, among others. Of course, English also. He worked as a foreign correspondent and covered numerous events, including the unrest in Algeria after France Premier Charles de Gaulle's political decision. When he was out of job, he took his old typewriter and finished a book, which was to become the world's famous book and reprinted multiple times. The book was written in just 35 days, but to convince the publishers, it took a longer time. There were several rejections, and many turned their back on Forsyth, shaking their heads and disapproval of the story of an assassination of de Gaulle that never was. But one publisher has come forward with a rider. That was the next two books Forsyth would write would be given to the publisher. Forsyth agreed, and a canvas of writing on espionage packed with thrills, surprises, and details has changed forever. The Day of the Jackal, I remind you friends, is a story of the conflict between French President Charles de Gaulle and his opponents who wanted to assassinate him. They hire an Englishman to complete the job, and he nearly completes the job, but his lack of understanding of French custom of the peck on the cheek instead of a handshake misses the first bullet to take the target's skull, and there was no time left for the second. The two follow books, Dogs of War, where a wealthy businessman creates a war in an African country and plants his puppet as the head of the government as he wanted the mineral wealth of that country. This was done by mercenaries. The recruitment, action, and the takeover were all well documented. The other promised book was Odisha File, where a journalist tracks down an agency set to protect former Nazis, and all the three books were made into films. Not to say The Day of the Jackal, which Edward Fox as the assassin was the most successful one, followed by Odisha File and Dogs of War, just passed. Next came the thriller Devil's Alternative, a very relevant story even today as it deals with the conflict of Soviet Union and Ukraine, which was part of it before the disintegration of USSR. Ukraine has been fighting for independence since long, and there has been a long history of struggle and a whole hatchet refuses to bury. Now, with Putin and Zelensky in war, the book tells us about how the revolutionaries of Ukraine attempt to tell the world their viewpoint by an international plot by hijacking a big cargo ship full of oil and places it amidst the North Sea and call the countries around to acknowledge their cause, or else the oil from the tanker would be spilled, causing environmental concerns. The novel was well researched and very well written and has the pace of a cheetah after a slow start, which speaks about the death of a person whose dying words were something which were understood by the revolutionaries as it was the opening lines of the national anthem of Ukraine, which translate means Ukraine lives on. The novel also mirrors the Cold War period with Soviet Union facing food crisis and US watching the situation, KGB operations and the like. The other notable novel is Negotiator. In this novel, the son of the US president is kidnapped in London and the drama unfolds, with the best negotiator being called in. The novel hits a dead end on three occasions, but he retrieves and the flow goes on. Stepping out of his comfort zone, he writes Phantom of Manhattan besides The Deceiver, Fist of God, and The Afghan, which has Iraq in the backdrop. He wrote all his books on typewriter, and like many old timers, he used only his two pointing fingers for the typing the books. Ironically, this man wrote his last novel, The 18th, and it's titled The Fox, which is about a hacker. Yes, a hacker and a spy thriller. This was in 2018. He also wrote short stories, and they are compiled in two books. One is No Comebacks, and the other one is The Veteran. The title stories are spine chilling and a must read. We pay tribute to the great writer with these few words. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode. Thank you very much.
Please subscribe to the channel and download the Politikos app from the links in the description.